Rest of it. See me.
Are you live now?
I am. I've been live for 15 seconds.
Okay, probably tell me that one. Fine.
It has happened.
Yes.
Melissa's here. Hi, Melissa. You're fast. Yay.
Pop out the chat.
How's it going where you are? Melissa says, yes, the festival. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian. How was your week? Your hair is beautiful. Thank you, Carla. Interesting week. I had some adventures. Melissa says, was not today, and I got confused with so much going on. The festival was not today. Okay. I drove over, no one was there. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's a bummer. You don't want to arrive and have no one there. We had that happen we were going to a solar solstice celebration and meeting people in a parking lot.
Oh
Nobody showed up, but we ended up with an adventure.
Look what I did to my arm.
What did you do?
Got paint on it. Actually, it just looks like something, doesn't it?
It does look like something. Just paint, though.
Just paint, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we ended up having an adventure accidentally. That was the day I ended up going to Mount Ashland, to the Buddhist temple up there. That was since we were ready to go to a festival, we found one. Melissa says, on the most cold weekend in 3 years. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of cold air everywhere out there.
Started looking too orange on mine, too. So.
Well, we'll have to fix that later. Sorry if I'm orange today. Am I orange to others?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you are to me, so see.
Yeah.
Mine looks pretty much like your screen does, so.
Carla says, I've done that, Melissa. Not a festival, but a rock and gem show. I arrived 2 days early. Melissa says, hey, you have something on. Yes. Last week they asked me to wear my dragon collar that I made for myself. So this is my dragon collar. And they also asked me to wear black, which I wear for my dragon collar. So here it is. I do wear black and I like it. I have nice black outfits. Dragon? Yes, it's a Celtic dragon. And I did this with Czech seed beads, little tiny ones, some really short ones, and built it up and everything. We were talking about that last week. So it got some people's interest piqued who hadn't seen this. Teresa says, we are going to have a relatively mild week. There will be melting. Ooh, melting. Always good, except for the muck. But Melissa says, laugh out loud at Carla. Carla says, that's beautiful. You're exceptionally talented. Yeah, when I made this one initially, I had planned on using the Egyptian collar that I made with the Isis on it. I was going to see if that makes me lighter. Okay. But when I made this one, I fell in love with it so much I decided I wanted it since I did a dragon for my daughter. So I got a dragon for myself. My granddaughter didn't get a dragon, but she wanted a tiger. I mean, I've made, let's see, I made Pegasus, hummingbirds, Celtic swan, Isis, winged Isis, Celtic water horse, 2 dragons, a wolf on a full moon, which was very challenging because they have very similar colors, and I used a lot of moonstone on that one. As far as the collar types, the swan was my first one I made for my mom. So, yeah, I started doing that when I was really sick. I saw an article in a bead and button magazine or something that someone had given me, and it had instructions on how to make a collar, and all of her stuff was just really freeform. And my mother wanted to have a Celtic swan because she's a harpist, and so that sort of I dove into the whole Celtic thing. So this is a Celtic dragon. It's the piece that I did this from actually is like a yin yang kind of. The dragon is around the wings or on top of each other, and so I opened up the pattern and made them sideways and so forth. Melissa says at Carly, yes, she is super talented. And Carla says Pegasus, the unicorn, is my mythological beast. Robert says nice Celtic dragon. Thank you, Robert. Jay says beautiful dragon collar on black as promised. Gorgeous. Yes, I remembered. Robert says yes, as promised. That was my idea too. Yes, it was, Robert. You were the one who said, do you ever wear black? And that got us into the talk about when I wear black. Sometimes just because I like black. I have several black outfits. And my witch's costume that I spontaneously wore to the ball was one of my long black dresses. Not this one, but a different one, because I thought it had a better vibe for them all. Black transform a person. So I did my first attempt at a crown, a magical crown. I'm waiting for some other stuff to come, but this is what I made with blue, with angelite and amethyst. So that's the crown. And I'm getting a ribbon so people can like tie it to whatever size they want using the loops back there. I'm still trying to figure out how the heck to get a picture of it. So I might have to wear it to get a picture of it. But I had fun with this as my first attempt. So we'll be making more, and we'll get this up on the website once I figure out how to take a picture of it and get a few others. And I have, yes, this is copper. Carla says, I wear black a lot too. And Melissa says, oh my goodness, did you say that is copper? And Carla says, I love it. Yeah, I'm using copper for all my wire wraps right now. Well, actually, for the silver colored ones, I've gotten some stainless steel wire. I haven't started using that yet because some people don't care for the aluminum, and I've got some of that as well. But anyway, I'm having fun experimenting with all these things and trying my hand at it. I'm working right now on an Swiss opal cabochon, which I really like the size and color of it. It's green and white. It's kind of cool. Teresa says, I love the crown. You could use a mannequin head. Yeah, I have to buy a mannequin head. That's what I was thinking. Robert says, copper is best. Melissa says, read about wearing too much copper at once for too long. You do not want to get zapped. Well, I've not had any trouble with getting zapped with copper, have you?
Oh.
Some people are allergic to metals, so you have to be careful of that. And for some people, wearing copper will turn their skin green because that's sort of the color that copper tarnishes is green.
Well,
I think
yeah,
that's
it kind of
why.
depends on the sweat and the constitution of that and how.
Right. Yeah, more people are allergic to nickel apparently, which was a big surprise to me because we think of nickel as like a pretty benign metal. But yeah. But hey,
Well, it's
copper
definitely
is
less.
good for conducting energy for sure.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't want to get zapped. Carla says it turns me green and nickel does it to me too. You know, when I went to the allergist, they asked me about any metal allergies, and fortunately, I don't think I have any. Not that I've noticed, at any rate. I suppose it's possible zinc might bother me if there was too much zinc in something, but I tend not to wear zinc. Melissa says, be careful. I wore 2 bracelets at once for my carpal tunnel. It zapped my whole arm with pain. Ow, not good. Well, you shouldn't wear 2 at once, apparently. So, might want to try compression gloves for your carpal tunnel. And magnets, perhaps, rather than copper. Maybe that would help. I don't know. Or a massage therapist really digging in there. Robert says, so when a broom is outside near the door, it means it's a witch that lives there. The broom was witchy looking, not a commercial looking one. Well, it could be, and it depends on the abilities of the witch, whether the broom is going to be down or up. in general, they recommend that you always keep a broom bristle up, because the story is that if it's bristled down, all your luck will run out. But also, when it's bristled down, it damages the bristles and they spread apart, which I think it should be something we use for all brooms, is bristle up, because then it doesn't get that weird like angle shape from using
Yeah.
it.
Same thing with anybody who lets a paintbrush rest in a container of stuff. Yeah, it
Right.
bends it all and ruins it. Yeah.
It bends it all.
Don't ever do that to your art brushes.
Carla says, in silver. Robert says, point it up. Good.
Yep.
Good to have it pointed up. Sounds like if it's a witchy broom, they might have made it themselves.
And Carla, believe it or not, I just had to unhold that you stick with stainless steel. It
What?
censored that.
Oh, please.
Talking about the pans, I just stick with stainless steel and it censored it.
All right. Good for you, Carla, and I'm sorry it censored you for no reason whatsoever. Robert says, silver is cool, but needs regular polishing. Silver
Yes,
prices are way high right now. It's really expensive just to get 10 feet of silver wire. So, yeah. I don't feel confident enough that I could charge enough to make it worth my while to do things in silver yet, since I'm still just learning. And I made a really cool one the other day, too. I posted it on one of my pages. But Teresa says, I can't tell you how many paintbrushes I have ruined because I intended to finish the painting job soon. I just threw out one that was sitting there for 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll definitely damage your brush.
Yep.
Apparently, it doesn't really like all that gravity pushing down on it. Carla says, oh yeah, silver wire is absolutely crazy. Yeah, and the prices just keep going up. I joined one of those crafting groups and I could see other people's designs and stuff and get ideas. And they were talking about the price of wire and, how much do you have to actually charge for your stuff. I'm like, right now, as a relatively new wire wrapper, even though I am already an artist, it's a new skill set that I'm acquiring. I feel more confident trying it in somewhat less expensive mediums. And I like copper. I like working with it. It's something nice about it, probably because of my connection with Venus sphere and Aphrodite and so forth, copper being her metal. I'm sure that that's something to do with it.
No, and it's relatively easy to work with compared to like something else.
Yeah, I haven't tried, like I said, I haven't
easy,
tried the stainless steel yet to see what it will be like.
If it's stainless, it'll probably definitely be harder.
Yeah, I think that they try to make it softer for crafters.
I know that even drilling through a thin stainless steel plate for crafts is really tough.
Yeah, so I guess I'll find out. I got the two sizes. I got the 20 gauge for the frame part and then the 28 gauge for the wrapping part.
I haven't done anything with stainless steel wire, but I know drilling through a thin sheet of it is hard.
I guess we'll find out as we learn more. Yeah, I've had an interesting week. I had an encounter when I was asleep on the astral plane with some young witch, I think, whose abilities were suddenly opening up. And I don't know how that happened and why I was there, but it was very real. It was one of those time was traveling in the right direction and not like leaping around and stuff. And apparently I was doing some energy healing on her and helping with her to control her abilities. I woke up from that and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then I had an encounter with, I think, one of the gnomes came into my room this week. And because I suddenly saw this very craggly face. It was like, really, they have such interesting faces. And I just like, oh, look at you. You're so adorable looking. Very interesting face you have. So, and then some fae, I think, have been wandering through my room just before I go to bed because a couple of nights this week I'll walk in and it just smells wonderful. It's like wonderful scent. So, and then I was playing with my aura this week too and having fun with that, doing all sorts of energetic stuff with my fingers and so forth. So it's been a fun week. We didn't sleep well last night, neither one of us. I got up at like 4 this morning, 4:30, somewhere like that. And Ian was having some insomnia, so he got up with me. And our cat was like, food, food, food. Every 15 minutes, is it time for food? He's like, you're both up. I think it means it's time to eat. He was pretty funny.
He's a beast.
Teresa says Amazon has aluminum wire for jewelry making that was well priced. Yes, I have some of that. But then someone was asking about aluminum wire and maybe they didn't want to have it on their skin. So I thought I'd check into other forms of wire that might be more suitable for people who have that issue. So I got some options. Carla says it's all those solar flares hitting us. Oh, there have been so many. I know. It's pretty exciting. And like the sun is just out there just throwing stuff around like bam, bam, bam. Had 4 X flares in a single day or so. It was like, okay. Robert says, sleep. Try eating a small handful of varied nuts an hour before going to bed. I do it and it helps. Well, that's not what makes me wake up at 4:30 in the morning. It's my spasm disorder, whatever causes that. And that was this morning. And Ian, I don't think he hasn't had insomnia in a while. It was just one of those things. It happens. It doesn't happen all the time. Thank goodness. We like our sleep.
Yes, well, it did before I had meds for it.
Yeah.
I take meds for insomnia now, so usually it doesn't act out while I'm taking my meds, but it did last night anyway.
Yep. And Carla could be right. Maybe it's all the solar flares. I don't know. Robert says spasms caused often by a lack of electrolytes. Not mine. My electrolytes are completely normal. My doctor was so happy to tell me with no results that he could point to tell me why I was having spasms. No, I've tried everything. I've been living with this for 25 years, so I don't think there's anything you could suggest that I haven't already tried. I use valerian root, and it works mostly all the time. It works really well when I'm on it regularly. And every so often, I just have breakthrough spasms. They are just part of whatever this thing is. But fortunately, it's not very often. So, but I think I appreciate your concern. You're not going to diagnose me, though. I think I need genetic testing if we're going to figure it out. But not doing that. We don't need to talk about them. They're not fun. I don't like them. Robert says roots reminds me of using white sage essential oils. Does wonder for skin problems. Carla says, speaking of cats and gnomes or fae, I've given the fae a safe throughway for decades. I never see them, but I think my cat can. Well, I'm sure your cat can. Cats see things on the other side all the time. They just usually don't care about them unless some crazy spirit's tossing them in the air, which I've been to a house where that happened, but and the cats were not happy in that house about the situation at all. I think it was a poltergeist. That woman had too many cats, though. Wow, I've never seen so many cats in one room. And must have been what 20 cats in that one room in that house out in was it Myrtle Point or Coquille? I think it was Coquille.
I don't.
That was the old woman. I think she was the poltergeist. And we had the things falling in the kitchen when we were in the living room, and all of us were in that part of the house, and no one was in the kitchen. And there's banging happening in there. She's the one that had the crazy power outlets that were like hot. Like I had my
Right.
EM field detector, and all of the power outlets in her kitchen were putting out a strong EM field. And I'm trying to convince her she might need to have an electrician come and check her wiring as well. Yeah, she wasn't very cooperative. Robert says a poultrygeist. So Robert says the traditional broom usage exists since when? The medieval times or older? Seems a very old tool known by witches and druids. Well, yeah, I think the witch has been associated with the broom for at least since the Middle Ages. All the pictures of witches riding their brooms to the Sabbath to go worship the devil, which wasn't really true and not happening. Teresa says, so I just ordered 10 more books from Indigo, trying to build myself a solid foundation. Awesome. Robert says, gassed. 10 books? That's enough for a couple of days of reading. Carla says she's a social eater, has been since I got her at 9 weeks, and every time we go out to her bowls, she'll hesitate. And I'll just sit there with her and snuggle her while she eats. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, some cats want approval. Or they want you to know that they're actually happy that you have fed them and they're letting you know by doing it in front of you in case you're worried. Who knows? Cats are funny. They really are. Bunny's feeling better too. He was molting, and they tend not to eat hardly anything at all when they're molting. So he had us a little bit worried, but his energy is picking back up and his food intake has started, so we're hoping the rest of the normal stuff that bunnies do will follow. So, yeah. Bunnies are so interesting. They're very different. I did learn from one of my cats that if a cat is sick and doesn't want to eat, if you have a cat that has a politeness gene, which my cat did, it's very impolite to refuse food from a spoon. And so I could force my cat to eat when he was depressed. His friend from his whole he'd been with his entire life disappeared and was presumed dead, and he got really depressed. So I would give him wet cat food on a spoon, and he would have to eat it. Barbara says, Siofra, do you have experience of certain gemstones that if you wear them for too long, they crank you up the next day? For example, red jasper. There are some stones that I have to be careful of wearing. I just know it when I need to take them off. So I don't know specifically which ones. Teresa says, those 3 stray cats I've been caring for are so loyal. They wait for me by the front door now and always stay in the yard. Yeah, they know where their food is coming from. This is good. Carla says, it's kind of like she sees something. We call it the ghost kitty. Pixie says, hi, beautiful. Hi, Pixie. Carla says, Siofra. Yeah, it's weird when you see a cat depressed. He was clearly depressed. I actually made him go to my office. I had a massage office at the time. So I took Charlie to the massage office with me, and he became a greeter of my clients, and then he would lay under the massage bed when I was, or the massage table when I was working on my clients. It was pretty interesting. Jay says, or Robert says, cats are also important in the witch lore. Looks like a topic for tonight. Well, that and all animals, but yeah, definitely cats. Jay says, so not just humans who have to be polite? That's so interesting about your kitty eating from a spoon. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it worked too.
It did. He was such a stickler for etiquette. Even after having him for 15 years, if I forgot myself in the morning when I got up and just leaned over to pet him, he would back up and look at me like, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? And I'd go like, oh, I'm so sorry, and show him the hand so he could sniff my hand, and then approve the hand, rub the hand, and then I was allowed to pet him. It was absolutely hysterical. He had some very strict rules that I had to follow. Robert says, hello, Carla. And Carla says, and apparently she knew I was talking about her because she just curled up on my lap. Aw. Ickle says, hello, lovelies. Happy Sunday. Hi, Ickle. Carla says, hi, Robert. Teresa says, when I was a kid, my mother made me go to my room until I ate my peanut butter sandwich. My cat was in the room with me, and I fed the whole thing to her. Can you imagine? Yeah, not. Peanut butter sticky. Glad your cat was okay and wanted the peanut butter. Maybe it was a familiar trying to help her out.
So it held Roberts. For when you have to take them off, what do you feel when you do what physical sign?
Okay, so that's about the stones.
Yeah.
Usually just relief. It's like, okay, this needs to come off, and that's it. Or it's because I'm using a stone for psychic development. I had a stone that I gave to someone else, and when I was testing it out, I discovered that it really amps up my clairvoyance and so forth. And I already have it already so high that I could only wear it for a certain period of time, and then they needed to take it off so I could get a break. Of course, I was also on the power spot when I was doing that, which amplified it even more. So, you know. But yes, I've had a few things. I've had that with tanzanite where I could wear it for a period of time and then I have to take it off. One time I had it on and I'm like, how did I get this thing off my neck? It won't unlatch. And I'm going like, get this off of me. And of course, then I have the stones I can't use because I read them and got some nasty images from them, like the Tibetan quartz. I won't buy any of that because I can't trust it after that experience. So it's important to know the quality of your stones, and everyone's body is different. Like we have different food allergies, we're going to have different responses to different stones. That's just sort of the way we are. We're all very different. So Carla says, "Oh my goodness, the water elemental and undines, and when we talk to the water, she hears Siofra." Yes, I think they were my first real conscious encounter with elemental spirits when they taught me how to swim, which was so cool. It really doesn't work to force children to eat things they don't want. I don't know why that's a thing. It seems like a control thing. I remember in my family, it was like, there are children starving in Africa. You need to eat all your vegetables. And I'm like, can we put these in a package and ship them right to these children if they need them? Because I don't want these vegetables. I was always practical. Flexible says, hi, all. I almost missed the live. How time flies. Well, you're here, and we've got at least an hour left, so welcome. Beth says, hi, Siofra. Ian in chat. Hi, Beth. Oh. Melissa says, do you think the Tibetan stone visions were Tibetan? The Tibetan crystals that I had, I had a shop owner here who sold crystals, and she had gotten in the shipment, and she asked me if I would do an energy reading on them to see how they were. And so I went in, and in order to do that, I have to drop all of my barriers and shields and so forth if I'm going to read something. So it's always a risk. You never know what you're going to get. And when I held the Tibetan crystal, what I saw were Chinese soldiers armed, forcing these people to mine the crystals. And I burst into tears, and yeah, it wasn't good. And so I told her what I saw, and then I, after that, would never touch another one just in case they had a similar story to them. Being an empath can be a challenge sometimes. Definitely. Robert says, Siofra, sometimes when I am near a person, I am out of control and I feel pushed to talk about deep subjects, even though I wanted to keep my life private. Yeah, that's probably an empath then. We draw things out of people without trying, mind you. I mean, I don't know how many people in a grocery store have come up and spewed their entire life story to me in 5 minutes or less. And I don't know that they're trying to keep it to themselves. They just say, oh, here's someone who will listen to what I have to say. But yeah. Teresa says, I hated peanut butter as a kid, but don't mind it now. But it is best with honey. Robert says, hey, hello, Beth. Carla says, Teresa, I told you your kitties found their home. They're definitely your protectors. Beth says, kisses, Robert. Carla says, there. Yes, it's okay. We're not grammar correctors here. Melissa says, oh, so that wasn't typical of you to see those type of visions? Well, it depends if I'm trying to read something. There's times that I can't go shopping in like secondhand stores, like Goodwill or Hospice or bazaars or something like that, because I'm in a sensitive state. And when that happens, and I touch something and I start to get instant readings off of them, I'm like, okay, this is not a good day to shop. I'm going to stop. And I've had things happen in antique shops a lot. Oh, Ian and I had an encounter at a local store that had some Nazi memorabilia in it. We're talking knives with swastikas, and they were the real thing. They weren't replicas, and I didn't know what was in the case, and Ian didn't realize what I would do when he said, "Oh, I feel something over here," and I dropped my shields and came over and went, "I'm going to throw up." So I had to get out of the store really fast and made it to the park and threw myself on the ground at the park underneath the trees and just let the earth take all of that I had absorbed back into the earth and got centered again. So I mean, it's a problem that can be controlled. I mean, it's just a skill set. You have to know when to use it and when not to, if you can. Okay, so I needed to go up a little bit because everybody was very excited. There we are. Flexible says, at Robert, ah, yes, the eternal struggle of keeping the maximum of stay silent is a fight sometimes. Yeah, that's for sure. Sun Dragon says, yes, eh? And our taste changes when we grow older, so nobody can tell us what we like then either. Laugh out loud. Hi, Siofra. Hi, Ian. Hi, Sun. Robert says, is it that person who attacked me and silently tricked me to reveal information about me? Indeed, Flexible. I am empath, and sometimes I feel people can inflict a weird energy that forces me to talk. Well, you'll get more control over that if you don't want to actually talk to them. But I have the same problem. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's like I shouldn't tell these people these things, and I confess things that have happened. It's like something happens and I do something really dumb, and I go like, well, I should keep that to myself. And the next person I see is, you won't believe the stupid thing I just did, and tell them everything. I'm an open book. But then, when people ask me questions, I give them my answers, and that's just sort of the way I am. And yeah, I've been accused of being too free with my answers from several people. But if they don't want to know, they should not talk to me. That's what I figure. So Teresa says, Carla, I can't keep the kitties, although I would love them. They need to go soon. We are a good way station for them. Beth says, yes, we do. Oh my, like a moth to a flame at the grocery store. Robert says, stay silent is so damn hard, depending on who is there. It's weird. And really, Beth? Carla says, the fire horse officially arrives on the 17th, and a few of us are wanting to talk to the fire elementals that night. Not sure if the weather will cooperate, but we're hoping. Cool. Robert says, wow. It's like I wanted to be sure I could trust that person, or the person tricked me somehow. Well, certainly it's a way of weeding out the weak, isn't it? Or the people who are not open-minded. Because they look at you sideways and they go like, okay. And then you're like, knock that person off my list. Melissa says, that sounds horrible. Another layer of reality that you have to feel. Yeah, it's not fun. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons for learning how to control your abilities. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. This is the first time in my life I've been able to stay in the same place for a period of time. Previously, I've always had to move about every 1 to 2 years because I would tune into all the thoughts and energy and feelings of everyone in the neighborhood. And when I got to the point where I couldn't block anybody out, I like walked down the street and I could hear in my head everything they'd been saying, and then the things that they hadn't been saying, and the arguments that they had, and how they really felt, and so forth. And it would just become too overwhelming, and I would move to a new place because it would take me a while to tune in to that neighborhood. So it is not something that you want to have unless you can control the ability. I think it makes some people go crazy. I think that's, maybe one of the sources of certain kinds of mental health issues. Robert says, indeed, Melissa. And Beth says, being vulnerable here for around a month, I dream my body is dying. Being extremely empathetic lately and picking everything up. I'm so sorry, Beth. That's unfortunate and unpleasant. Carla says, Teresa, I so wish there was some way you could keep the kitties. Beth says, Robert, every time. Robert says, yeah, it's crazy, like a marathon of information given. Nicholas says, what is the fire horse? Carla says, it goes with the Chinese Lunar New Year. We're shedding the last of the snake and getting ready for action. Ron says, hello and blessings to all. Robert says, yes, I can feel the mental state of a person. Very fast. Carla says, that's the shedding of the snake, Bethy. Robert says, I agree, Carla. Yeah, transformation is never pleasant. It's always somewhat uncomfortable, whether it's just a small, minor personal transformation or a big one. It's sort of a shifting of all the energies around you. And that's, part of reality. You have to adapt or run away or hide. But yeah, I do my best not to read other people's minds because I, one, don't want to know what they're thinking. Two, figure it's none of my business. Unless it's going to be something dangerous to me. I have that sort of thing out there. So if someone is thinking about harming me, I pick that up because that's like different. Flexible says, talking of keep silent when it comes to this world, it goes both ways. It protects the magician from harm and the normal person from the mental harm that sometimes comes from revealing magic, so to say.
Yes, and that's a good point because it can.
Yep,
As
some
we
people are
we
not
found,
ready.
yeah.
My philosophy is if they ask me, then they better be ready because they asked me the question and I'm going to tell them what I think. So that's on them. Nicholas says, thanks, Carla. Sounds good to me. Been a long, restful winter. Beth says, Siofra, me too. Thankful. I love my home and neighbors. Not too sure about our new ones. Our old neighbors were there 20 years. Robert says, yes, absolutely it can. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, and that's the thing is like right now we have a pretty good neighborhood around us. We have one problematic house at the moment. But one of the weird things we've noticed, there's like the house that's next to us on this side, we went through a whole bunch of people and they would come and go and come and go and come and go. And now these people have been there for a while. So I think they might stay. Same with the house next to us on the other side. Same thing. We had, people buying the house and then selling the house and, and doing crazy stuff. And I mean, there have been some loonies that lived over there. Now we got like a single person with a dog, and he seems to be perfectly normal and fine. So we're good. I know the person across the street from us. She was actually in our circle for a while. And then the other people across the street just seem to be hardworking individuals that mostly mind their own business and take care of their property and so forth. And we don't have like a bunch of people with hair trigger, energetic stuff. So that's good. And we wonder if maybe we're the reason why these people kept changing to other people because of the energy of our property and putting up our barriers, energetic barriers and so forth to protect us from intruders, mental and astral and whatever, keeping our space clear. And yeah, so it's sort of interesting that we could have affected the neighbors without meaning to, but but we're happy now. Robert says, oh, Carla says, it has been. Echo, you're welcome. Ron says, I got my bag of snow on the first. Snow was covered in a crust diamond crystal ice. Looked like enchanted fairy frost. Amazing. Bag of snow. Okay. Did it come in the mail? Or did you dig it out of your yard? Like, and yes, I know it does get crusted on top and sparkles. That's one of the things I loved about living up north. One of the beauty in the wintertime when it got so cold that the water vapor in the air crystallized and would float around your face like little crystal diamonds and stuff floating in the air. And then when the moon came up, oh my. And same with the surface of the snow, it would just sparkle and reflect the light. Melissa said, snow? Yeah. Beth says, Carla, that did cross my mind in my dreams. I say, no one, I'm done yet. And I jump up straight out of bed, heart pounding, frightening my cat. He sleeps with me. I'm not done yet. Yeah. Well, make sure you talk to the doctor, because when I had my heart arrhythmia, when I was going through that, I had a pinched vagus nerve, which was causing my heart arrhythmia and some breathing problems from being in an accident. And my doctor was sort of pretty dismissive, but every night I went to bed and the arrhythmia would get going, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be there in the morning. And, when I went to my doctor about it, he's like, "You're really worried about this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." So I was really gratified to find out he didn't know what to do. He's not my doctor anymore. He had no clue what to do. Um, but my chiropractor did and fixed the impingement in my neck and stopped the squeeze on my vagus nerve and cured me of that. So, the instincts that our body has, the body is got its own consciousness or what have you, and sometimes it's trying to warn us of things. So if you have that feeling, I say you probably should go see a doctor. Because I wasn't ready to go yet either. Bodies are interesting. But now that we have new people here, I'm going to show you my crown I made again. Because I'm quite proud of it. So this is my newest creation. I made a lunar crown thing with amethyst and angelite. So I'm pretty happy. That says it's time for test. I pick up physical illness before doctors do. Yep. Dario says, beautiful, beautiful crown. Yes. Thank you. I like it. I like it very much. I'm thinking of other things to do with it. Zoom says, oh, wow, I love your crown. Yeah, I'm going to get a purple ribbon so people can tie it to whatever length they want. Barbara says, angelite. I have a bracelet of that. They say it calms the energy. Yes. Pixie says, woohoo, gorgeous. And of course, we do the amethyst crystal web, so that seemed like perfect. And angelite's supposed to help you contact your angel guides or angelic energy or lift your spirits, kind of thing like that. So, Beth says, Robert, he owns me in my bedroom, which is magical. That would be the cat. Flexible says, nice. What material is the wire? Copper. Does it have any use for magic? Yes. You can wear it as a magic crown and charge it up for whatever purposes you want to put yourself into a magical state.
The copper is good for electric type of stuff, so anything like projecting or that kind of thing. Projecting versus magnetic, where you're trying to draw things in, which quartz is good for in particular.
Yeah, and of course the amethyst crystal web.
Of course, silver wire. Silver wire is the equivalent for magnetic. So,
yeah,
and silver wire is associated with lunar, and copper is more associated with Venus, for what that's worth.
Right.
If you want Venus symbology.
And yes, it can help change the mental state because what I have a few crowns that I've made, and I think I'm going to remake one of my crowns that's got selenite and kyanite on it. And I'm thinking about, with what I learned from this, how I could change the design to fit the beads that I have with that. And you charge them up for the purposes you want, and it's just another step in getting ready to do something special. Like you can have certain clothes that you only wear during ritual or special occasions, and so the energy of those occasions sort of becomes absorbed by the fabric that you wear, and what it generates in your mind is sort of way of setting your head, your brain. So you can charge up the stones and the metal and so forth in it for a certain purpose, and for like awakening your abilities or moving yourself into a different frame of reference, raising your vibration, or what have you. Absolutely. So Melissa says, do you have experience with crystallite or peridot? I've worked a lot with peridot because my daughter, that's her Earthstone, I guess. I don't think I've worked with crystallite though. I like the peridot, it's quite nice. Beth says, "Oh my God, that's gorgeous, Siofra." Uh, Ron says, "Laugh out loud, see above about the snow." I don't think I saw anything above about the snow. Get held? Did I miss it? Oh, here we are.
Well, I didn't hold
I see
anything.
it. Ron says, "I was on here the night of the 1st. I mentioned gathering snow to melt. Ah, and for rituals, I left that powdered milk as an offering." Ah, gotcha. Okay. Sorry I missed your comment. Thank you for letting me know it was up there. I remember now. There's too many things in my head sometimes. Robert says, "Beth, I like cats. Sadly enough, I'm allergic to them." Yeah. Beth says, "Keep me posted on the Amethyst Crystal project, please. Currently, I'm turbocharged." Yeah, it's every full moon is when we're doing it. So the next full moon is going to be at the end of February, I think. I don't have my calendar on me right now, but I shall post it to our channel and on my Facebook page with a link to the Zoom event. And then after the fact, I post the link to the ritual that we did to both other, to those places as well. And if you really aren't getting that, you can send me an email at alcove@gmail.com, and I will send you the link through an email, so you can get it if you want it. Lisa says it can change the mental state. Oh boy, I think I need a crown. Carla says, "Are you comfy, Bethy? Next full moon? Coming, comfy?" Beth says, "Robert, I recently became allergic. I used 2 nasal sprays and 2 sprays, one for the air and another for upholstery." I found that you can use for like dust mites and things like that. You can just buy a bottle of witch hazel, put it in a spray bottle, and spray it. It'll kill all the dust mite stuff if you have that as an issue. And you can use that on upholstery and so forth. It tends not to damage anything. It has an odd smell, sort of smells like smoke, but it's not bad.
Yeah, it's mild.
It's very mild. It's also a lot cheaper than the sprays that they sell at the medical place. I think when we looked at the medical place, they had a bottle of it, which was at the time like $25
Oh, I didn't remember
for a
that.
bottle of
That
the
was
stuff.
too long ago, but
Yeah, and that's when I figured out witch hazel's got a lot of tannins in it, which is what that bottle has, is tannins that kill off the stuff on the dust mites. Um, and so I thought, why should I use that $25 when I can buy the same size for like $5? So I switched. Carla says, "Well, all right." Beth says, "Carla, I'm in love." Melissa says, "Thank you for the dust mite tip." You're welcome. Robert says, "Thanks," and thank you, Beth. Shay says, "Next full moon is March 3rd. Okay, so it'll probably be before that. I usually do it at least a day before and look at the schedule. Melissa says, "I wake up in hives, small round bumps. I'm allergic to 75 of everything." I'm so sorry. That's miserable. My mother was once allergic to cold, damp air. And I actually saw that on a show I was watching the other day, that people can be allergic to cold air. They had it on one of the doctor shows or whatever. I was like, ah, and she would break out in hives. So yeah. Ron says, "Oops." By the way, hiya, Ian.
hello.
And Beth says, "I'll probably use Copperbird1 email. Mine isn't opening for me. I forgot my password." Well, however you can get me an email, I'll answer you in the email you send, so it's okay. Robert says the password is this, Copperbird1. And Carla says, "So we'll probably be doing it on my mom's birthday." Oh my God, that'll be awesome. Well, if it's on the 3rd, it's probably not going to be on that. That says, "Kisses and hugs to everyone." Thank you, Beth. Yeah, we did some healing on the last one, so, and that was fun on one of the people that came who was at the time not feeling up to snuff. So we all sent her energy and she felt it. So yay. It's always good to get feedback, find out things are working. Yep. Robert says, thanks, Beth. I could use that kiss. Yep. Staying positive can be a challenge. And staying well. Kiss back to Beth. Give Beth all kinds of kisses. Happy thoughts. Good energy. Feeling well. All of us. Yay. Beth says Melissa kisses and hearts. I have a lot of allergies to chemical things. I do well with natural substances on the whole. But that's the whole point. We have to pay attention to our own body, figure out what works for us and what doesn't. A friend of the family was just diagnosed with a genetic type of migraine that's very rare. They actually did genetic testing on her to confirm it. That's what she has, which is a really bizarre migraine that looks like you're having a stroke. That says, you're my people, hearts. Yay. Robert says, so Siofra, when you sleep, you do not wear any stones? I usually have them under my pillow. Sometimes I have them around my neck. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm wearing a stone when I sleep, it's usually like my tiger eye, because that's very comfortable and it doesn't move around and try and choke me when I'm sleeping. But often I'm working with different stones, and they're too big to wear, and so I put them under my pillow. So sometimes I have a kyanite under my pillow, or selenite, or amethyst, or whatever happens to draw me. I have some apophyllite that I do that with sometimes, and I try not to. If I move too much and it gets out from under my pillow, I can wake up with it under my body, which is not comfortable. Robert says, anytime, Beth. Beth says, heart. To Robert, Melissa says, hearts. Teresa says, I've decided I'm going to buy a giant notebook and sit down daily and try automatic writing and also video record attempts at channeling. What do you think? An interesting experiment. It's entirely up to you. Pixie says, I love my crew in my pillow. Yes. And when I use my wands, I actually put them above my pillow on the top of the bed. I have several different wands I'll sometimes do that with. Sometimes my banishing wand, sometimes my lunar wand, depending on the, time of the month, whatever it is I'm trying to work with. My Mars wand has spent some time up there for a while. I use my banishing wand sometimes to just clear myself with a piece of selenite. So banish any energy that might have collected that I hadn't noticed and get rid of it before I go to sleep. And sometimes I sleep with that in the bed with me, next to me, instead of above. So it depends. And then sometimes I knock them off the bed. I hear this thunk in the middle of the night. I'm like, what was that? Oh, that was a wand. Okay. So yeah, and they have stones on them like crazy, but at least they're secured, so they stay in one spot. Beth says, is it a cluster headache? No, it's not. It's a migraine, but it's one that actually makes your face droop and can give you seizures and look like you're having a stroke and difficulty talking. It's a very specific type that I've never heard of before. I just heard about it today. Robert says, good idea, Teresa. I do that also, but in my country, notebooks get expensive. I just put on my Angelite bracelet and felt a sort of soothing cold breeze in my energy. Sounds sweet. I like it. Carla says, I was allergic to cold, damp air when I was young, too. I remember my 7th grade home ec teacher asking if I was having trouble at home because I was in her first period class. Oh, yeah, they're always worried about that. Pixie says, I like to sleep with my new wand or crystals, helps to integrate and connect with them. Yeah, absolutely. And since all of my wands have their own personality and spirit associated with them, it's like kind of just hanging out with friends, as it were, and getting better acquainted and integrating, like you say, your energy with them. Robert says, anyone here got experience with using larvacite? Another one I've not heard of. Carla says, it doesn't bother my eyes so much anymore, just nasal crap. Robert says, I sleep with my wand near my pillow. And Robert says, nasal crap equals mucus. Ron says, any thoughts on shungite? You may wish to look into it. It could be a stone you'd want to work with. I actually have a piece right now that I bought when I was getting cabochons, but I haven't really done much work with it. I work with other meteorites, though. Pixie says, hey, hey, yes, new friends. Robert says, I use shungite myself. It's good for skin health. I've been using Amazonite a lot, too, lately. Made some nice beads of it, or pieces of it. And I think that Amazonite is good for the cramps and bone density and stuff like that, which are some of my issues. So I like wearing those. One of the things I like about the wire wrapping is, like, you have the natural the built thing of the stone itself, and then you can charge it up with whatever extra properties you might want or make it stronger for when you're using it. Beth says, I keep a selenite wand under the bed. Yeah. Dixie says, shungite good for EMF protection. Robert says, I have elite shungite and standard shungite. Well, there's classes, are there? Robert says, true, Pixie. Yeah, I used to be bothered a lot more by EMF. I used to have a reaction going under high tension power lines. And also in stores, some of their units would be off balance somehow. And I could hear the screaming sound coming from them that other people couldn't hear. It used to drive me crazy. Cases where you're looking at things. Some of those cases in stores where they've got different platters of cases, and it circles around and moves around like that. And sometimes in refrigerated units in grocery stores, I've had to leave some stores on occasion because it was too loud for my hearing. Carlos says, I have larvacite. I haven't used it for a while, but I remember it being grounding. Yeah, I like hematite and for grounding pretty well. Robert says, Carly, yes, and I learned that it helps seeing beyond the veil if I wear it at night. It's impressive. I like being in a creative frame of mind right now.
I'm just in kind of a sleepy frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm not thinking of this minute,
Sorry.
but in general, you're starting a new painting, so you're getting into it. Robert says, it's impressive, but it doesn't act like labradorite. Beth says, I feel that awesome sound and vibration in stores. Carla says, yeah, it's one of those psychic types of stones. And Melissa says, where do you buy your stones from, Siofra? A lot of times I go into rock shops, rock stores, gem and rock shows, and try to get acquainted with them in person. Right now, since I'm making all the jewelry, I found a couple of reliable places to get stones from. So that I don't know for sure exactly what their source is. So that's one of those things you can't vet every single source you have, it seems. But I haven't had any bad reactions to any of the stones that I've bought, so it seems like it's pretty good. Beth says, awful. Robert says, feeling so far away, Beth. And absolutely, Carla. Melissa says, can you post when you find reliable sources? Well, yeah, okay. I found one source for the cabochons that I'm getting. I like the quality of the cabochons. They're doing a really excellent job. And I got that source off of one of the beading videos or wire wrap videos that I was watching. I think it's called Camdans or something like that. And then Teja, Teja, seems to be a pretty reliable source for some quality stones. Fire Mountain Gems has got good quality stuff, somewhat a little more expensive than the other two places, I think, or maybe I just got lucky. And when I ordered it, they were on a sale. But yeah, Rio Grande is another place that people buy a lot of their wire and jewelry making material from. It's also a little bit spendy. I don't feel good buying stones from Amazon because they have a lot of fake gemstones, it would seem, because they say natural stone in this pattern. So they call it Amazonite or call it, uh, you know, some other stone. You just go like, yeah, but is it? It doesn't say it is, so I'm not buying any of that kind of stuff from Amazon. That says, Robert, how far are you feeling? Robert says, sometimes way over another continent, but I must have a sort of visual contact on the internet with that person. You? That says, I lose all judgments in a rock store. My weakness, I love it. Yeah. And says, I've been watching YouTube videos about organite, interesting stuff. Know of it? Again, there's a lot of new stuff out there. I like the old standards. I grew up with them and worked with them, and they're not that expensive or super rare, so you can find them and not have to break the bank in order to get them, and they work just fine for me. Melissa says, thank you. Yes, the faux stones. Yeah, it sure looks like that's what they are. I mean, they look pretty, but I'm not going to say that it is actually the stone. It's not going to have the same kind of charge. Dixie says, I just joined local lapidary club and making my own polished calves from slices of big raw crystals. It's very fun. Wow, awesome. Robert says, are crystals now in 2026 more expensive? I know black tourmaline is insane now in money. A lot of things become more expensive because if they become popular, they jack the price up. If they become rare, they jack the price up. If they think they can get away with it, they jack the price up. So that says, Robert, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. Robert says, wow, I'm impressed, Beth. I feel less alone in those abilities. I think that that's the thing. Is one of the reasons why we have the channel is so that people can find out it's not happening just to them. I think in isolation, most of us who have these abilities might think we're somewhat crazy. There's something wrong with our brain. It doesn't work like other people's. But just because it doesn't work the same as other people's doesn't mean that there's actually something wrong with it. So, yeah, they used to like people like us a lot in the old days. Dixie says, I don't like the idea of organite crystals trapped in epoxy. Doesn't sound fun. It's Atlantean tech. Robert says, channeling, yes, or some sort of Reiki, maybe? Beth says, Robert, you are a precious gem. Robert says, energy knows no boundaries anyway. Yeah, you can make boundaries for energy. You can define what energy you can accept, tune yourself as a receiver to receive the right frequencies that you're interested in, tune out the ones that you're not. So I disagree. You can have boundaries. They may not know particular boundaries, but when they meet yours, they'll bounce off if you have it set up that way. And don't tell yourself something can't be done, and then that leaves it completely off the table once you convince yourself that that's the way it is. There was a person on one of the witch groups I was in the other day who was convinced that she she put a cloth out when we were talking last week about Bridget and putting a cloth, a shawl or fabric or whatever outside for Bridget to bless, and she did that. And when she brought it in and put it around her, she got sick. And she's convinced that it made her sick. And no amount of trying to talk to her about the science of how you're infected with something long before you get the symptoms, and it was probably a coincidence. She just stated flatly, I know it's true. I don't believe in coincidence. And so then there's nowhere to go. There's no conversation that can be had when somebody has put a hard stop in their head and become inflexible in the way that they're thinking. And so it really can affect how the world reacts with you. So that's just where I'm thinking. Beth says, I self-isolate by choice. I pick up everything. Robert says, oh, I meant distance. Yes, maintaining a healthy boundary is good, and sometimes it's too late. Shame or guilt takes over sometimes. Me too, Beth, and I attract weird creatures also without judging them. Energy is interesting. So there's this entire universe that exists next to us. And some people are tuned into it and can see it and feel it and sense it, and some people can't. Melissa says, Siofra's Learning Channel. Yes, I hope so. I mean, the way our brain works, it's like we're in charge if we can rewrite it. We don't have to keep it the way it is. We can change how we view things and rearrange our senses and priorities and assumptions about reality and so forth. But we have to work at it and decide to do it. Flexible says, me never using crystals. To be honest, I will eventually use some of them, but I don't like the idea of possibly becoming dependent on the tools after the mind is supposedly all we need. I like having the company. they're alive. I mean, that's the thing, is that stones are not just tools, they're living beings. And as a pagan, I believe that everything that exists is alive and sacred and conscious on some level. Even things that we think of as inanimate have a life energy to them because they exist. They have been created out of something, and that energy still is in there. And so I don't think of them as tools, but as friends that I have chats with and work with and that kind of thing. And I like them better than people. It's just, they're more reliable, you know. Ah, Robert says, yes, frequencies, polarities, vibrations, etc. Ron says, I want these two stones, Shiphronite and Ionite. Joke. Yeah, if only.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Sounds like an idea. We'll name a stone after us and then sell it. That'd be silly. Robert says, my first ever gemstone I was 16 years old. It was a heated amethyst that became a citrine. Citrine, baby. Haha. Yeah, citrine is cool. And natural citrine is hard to come by. I mean, it can do that in nature. And usually you can tell because of the color. If it's artificially heated, it's a much darker orange. If it's not, it's a very light yellow. At least the ones that I've got. Beth says, Robert, me too. I'm fine in my sacred sanctuary. I get out time to time. I love strange, different. It aligns with my vibration. Carla says, that's why I like solfeggio frequency, Robert. I listen to Meditative Minds on YouTube. Flexible says, that is true. Everything has a spirit to be interacted with. Tough. Never thought about it that way. Though, never thought about it that way. I think that was what that was. Yeah, I mean, it's a different way of interacting with the world. And I want to make sure that my crystals are happy with me, that they want to work with me. So far, I haven't had any reject me and say no, kind of thing, except me and the tanzanite, whatever's going on with that. I think it's just an energetic allergic reaction or something. But I could get adapted as my energy changes. Barbara says, same for me. Music like that helps me create mantras. Melissa says, laugh out loud. Teresa says, Teresa type. Beth says, flexible. We are magical beings that flows through us like water effortlessly. Barbara says, well, the social energy when I get out is so terrible. Sometimes I just rush to the grocery store and try to get the F out ASAP. No kidding. I understand that. We had one day where everybody was cutting us off in traffic and driving like maniacs. Other times they're fine. I had some delightful encounters with elderly people in the store. Just like came up to me and just said some wonderful, cute, little, delightful things. And I was like, oh, I like that. That's nice. Pixie says, have you used crystal spheres specifically for anything? I have an amethyst, I have an amethyst sphere that I bought for scrying. I have an amber sphere that's the top of my staff. I have some other spheres. I have a crystal ball, rock quartz crystal ball sphere, and that's also for scrying. It kind of encompasses like the idea of things not having any distance or barriers to me, being round like that. Robert says, true, Beth. Carlos says, some of those frequencies I can feel like I'm at a live rock show by the speaker stacks. Robert says, Robert site? Beth says, Carla hearts. Jay says, I had 2 different acupuncture treatments this week, Friday and Saturday, to help me recover more fully from my recent illness. During my acupuncture sessions, I imagined myself at the center of a circular room. Its ceiling was arranged like the months of the year, and everything, walls, arches, even the air, was made of amethyst. Soft light poured down from above, illuminated by the full moon. This amethyst room was set within a magnificent oak tree, a hidden treehouse. The space was filled with breathtaking deep purple roses, richer in color than any I've ever seen. Wow, I love that. That sounds fabulous. Way to use the amethyst crystal web. Says, try 'em, Bethy. You'll like 'em. Baby girl says, happy Sunday, everyone. Hi, Ibby. Not baby, sorry. Beth says, Carla, I will love. Robert says, I have a wand room. One wand on every corner.
Cool.
My room has so many wands. I have a vase with wands stuck in them so that they have a place to be. And then I have wands on altars and shelves and things. And on my bed, you know. On my nightstand. And yes, I have them everywhere. Shay says, holding this visualization throughout my acupuncture session seemed to amplify the experience, deepening both the calm and the sense of restoration. That's awesome. Robert says, want a wand? Laughed out loud. Melissa says at Ibby, hi there. Robert says, I wander. Jay says, definitely Crystal Amethyst web project. Yeah, it's great. I was at an acupuncturist once, and he had an angel in his office. He left me in there to cook, you know, after I got the needles in me. And I was laying there, and all of a sudden I felt an angel standing behind me and put its hands on my head, and I could feel the energy coming through. It was pretty interesting. It was very vivid. And the acupuncturist came in, and I said, do you know you have an angel in your office? He said, yes, I do, but most people do not. So he was surprised that I knew he had an angel. Thought that was kind of funny. And Beth says, Shay, hearts. Yep. Robert says, anyone with bloodstone experience? For me, I use them to calm my leg or feet muscle cramps. I have bloodstone. I like bloodstone. Don't think I've used it for that particularly, but I have a bloodstone with a natural hole in it on my staff. To me, the bloodstone represents the goddess. It's kind of interesting when I bought bloodstone from somebody. It's like they're telling me the history of it and how it's Christ's blood and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, now, but initially, it was the blood of the female goddess that was in the stone, not that. Associations change over time. Melissa says, why haven't of a crystal den like they have salt dens? Well, there are crystal dens. In fact, the woman from Australia who's in here, she's going to put some amethyst crystals in the amethyst crystal cave thing in Australia. So that's cool. I don't know, but I think a rock shop is a crystal den. So, Robert says, the goddess of blood? No, just the goddess, the female goddess, the great goddess, the mother goddess, the woman goddess, representative of the female creativity and birthing. The blood represents that ability to transmit energy from a spirit realm into the physical realm and through the womb. And so, yeah, and the sacrificial blood of the goddess is freely given. So you don't have to, no one has to die for that, which is awesome. They associate it with a goddess. It is true. Beth says, blood of the goddess. Melissa says, you're right. Rock shops are dens. Duh. Robert says, laugh out loud, Melissa. Yeah. I like that we have we have a rock den at our mall now, so it's fun to go in there and just kind of, rock shops are cropping up in more places. Our town has not liked rock shops historically, so because they are scared of them. I mean, I had a client once tell me that her pastor told her that crystals were evil. So that was the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, that makes no sense. Pixie says, that's me. Yes, that's you. Pixie in Australia. I'm getting exciting to go. It's a crystal castle on a mountain. Lots of amethysts. Yes. And I was so happy to hear that you were going to do that. That says, yes, Siofra, you showed us one before on Facebook. I would never leave. Robert says, wow. Castle of Crystals. Wish I saw that. You can look it up. It's called, is it called Crystal? I think it's called Crystal Castle.
You're not talking about the Coral Castle.
No, I'm talking about the one in Australia.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
They have some of the largest crystals in the world there. They actually had one that they brought over on a boat from Central America, I think. And it's like one of the biggest geodes ever found of that kind. I mean, I saw pictures of it and I'm like, ooh, if I went there, I'd probably just sort of drop into a trance and people would have to pick me up and carry me out. I don't think I could walk. Carla says, same here. These nutters prayed a rock shop away. Pixie said, yes, Crystal Castle. Yeah. It is. I've seen the pictures and it's just fabulous. There's some great stuff there. So, yeah, there's always so many associations with things. Getting a nice steady rain, though. Probably good for us, but we don't have any snowpack in our state. So there's probably going to be a drought this summer, unfortunately. Funny how that works. We were talking about weather magic the other day, and Robert says, I just surfed it on Google. I saw it once. It's big and unique, large amethyst the size of a human. Lozari says, do you think the land is more magical in the Americas versus Europe, Asia, or is it the same? And most modern stories of supernatural things seem to be from the USA. I don't think so. I think that there's a lot more supernatural stories from Europe because they have been peopled for so long as far as like ghosts and paranormal stuff and spirit beings and so forth. So I think it's just the same everywhere. I think there's less here because we haven't, haven't been as populated densely for as long as Europe has. So I think there's a greater chance of interactions and things like that. When my sister and my mother went to France, my sister actually had a memory of a past life there. Well, she didn't exactly have a memory of past life. She just knew everything about the place as if she had been there before and knew where the layout was of everything and sort of drug my mother around. So it seemed pretty clear that it must have been a past life memory. And yeah. So no, I don't think that that's the case. I think it's everywhere. Robert says, and more. Yes, there's more. Beth says, if you get me in a crystal shop, I'll be in there forever. I have to touch them and talk to them and always bring some home with me. Yes. Robert says the cashier could not be ready for that, Beth. No, I think that they expect that at crystal stores. They know that there's types of people like us that go in. Some people are just there to browse and look at things and go like, ooh, how pretty. And other people are like, where did you come from? Do you want to come home with me? Do you like me? I like you. Figure it out. Flexible says that Nozari, have you heard about what goes on in Japan? You just read crazy stuff from there. Carla says the land is just pissed off here, USA, Nozari. Nozari says, that's so cool. Robert says, flexible, what? Beth says, Robert, you got that right, love. Robert says, for 2 to 3 hours, depends. Yeah, I have to be, when I go to a rock show, I have to get through it by a certain time, otherwise I get so drained from all of the looking and the chatter and stuff like that. It's like, I feel exhausted when I come out. Robert says, but on the other hand, they would prefer you stay than leave. Yeah. I mean, I've had encounters in stores like when I lived in Santa Cruz, there were some shops there that they knew there were people like me out there. And if I went into one of their shops and I saw something I really wanted, they couldn't sell it to anybody else. No one else would buy it. And that's how I got some really cool stuff. They would do layaways with me. If it was like 20 bucks a month or whatever, and I'd get some really neat items that way when I fell in love with something, and they would go like, okay, here we go again. Sometimes my friends would go in and help pay it up so that I would get it sooner. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. Robert says, but yeah, it's so important to be as long as possible because we want to make sure we get the right crystals. Very true, flexible. Japan is surprising for that. Well, I mean, there's places like when I went to the Big Island in Hawaii, that was the first time I'd been in a place where I could feel a current goddess energy. I met Pele when I was there, and it was amazing and very intense and very real. And I know that, in other countries like Indonesia and so forth, and Japan and India and China and stuff like that, the active energy of the gods that and goddesses that they work with is very much present. And I'm sure if I went there, I would feel that too. And here, I did meet a local goddess, a spring goddess, that I think has been here. I think was a Native American deity that was here. I went on a paranormal investigation on one of the first properties that were, developed by the pioneer people who came, and so forth. And up the hill from her, I could feel the goddess energy. She was really nice and strong. And when she came down the hill, she had flowers popping up out of the ground behind her, not physically, but in my vision, I guess, of her. So I knew pretty much what she was. And they were afraid of her because they did not know what she was. So it's kind of interesting that, you can encounter that. But she was a definite vivid presence. That's also where I encountered the female native who cursed the land right where the house was because of her being murdered on her wedding day. It was not a pleasant thing, but she let the curse go, so that was interesting. You never know what you're going to find when you get into those places. I'm always surprised at what comes up and what I find and what I see. But anyway, yep. Melissa says, show and tell next week. Again, bring your best rocks. Oh, Flexible says, Robert, land spirits, paranormal games, yokas, martial arts spirits, just to say. Those guys are crazy sometimes with dark games. That says, exactly, Siofra. Robert says, but yeah, it's so important to be as long as possible because we want to make sure we get the right crystals. And very true, Flexible. Melissa says, show and tell. Robert says, when I get in a rock shop, at times there are too much interference. Energy sticks to those. Yeah, that's why you have to be careful in antique shops if you're sensitive. I think each one of us sort of tune into different frequencies too. So, I mean, when we found the Buddha head that was trapped and was upset in the antique shop, I mean, that one was just yelled at me. Well, didn't yell so much as, well, sort of, on an energetic basis. I looked at it and I saw what happened to it, like I did with the Tibetan crystals. Like, bam, it was in a temple and had its head chopped off. So I'm like, okay, that's a unpleasant way to end up in a store in the middle of nowhere. And so we rescued it, and that was pretty cool to be able to rescue the spirit that was stuck there and help the business because they're still in business now. They were actually about ready to go out of business when that happened. So, I think that if you can figure out what's going on and you can write it, then the energy can shift and it can change the result. Like with the spirit of the Buddha that was stuck in there from the bad experience and so forth. I had another encounter with a part of the woods up north of us that we went on a walk, and the guy who was with me was telling me that they had tried to cleanse this part of the woods numerous times, and it would work for a while, but then it would come back. I went down there, and I felt the spirit of, I think it was 2 or 3 people that had been murdered there, and so I helped them, their energy to leave and cross over, and then later heard back from him, and he said after I did that, the creek that went through there suddenly become clean. It cleared up, and then the light was different in the area, and it stayed changed. So you can have a real effect on your environment energetically when you're paying attention in a certain way and trying to move energy into the right direction so that things are more harmonious. So Robert says, Moki Stones, incredible reboot of the energy. Moki or Boji? Beth says, years ago, as a second job for the Perks, I worked with as an essay. I loved teaching people about stones and their meaning. You know where that money went. Back into rocks. Carla says, I love them, Robert. I have an entire bowl of them by my front door for my ancestors. Beth says, I had all my children working there as well. Carla says, I have the Moki. Robert says, agreed, Beth. Trixie says, I've had 4 new blue lace agate come to me past 2 months. The blue beings connected to them are just so divine. Yeah, I used them for my water wand, the blue lace agate. And the blue lace agate comes from Oregon. There's only one place it comes from, and it's from here. Kind of interesting. Robert says, Carla, what did you feel with those Moki stones? Complete and total balance and connection. Awesome. We have them at the rock shops a lot.
Yeah, I see them occasionally.
Yeah. I like it when people just get tuned in, like that kid that found the dinosaur eggs. I mean, talk about things that can happen to you if you're really tuned into the environment. This kid went out camping with his family and he was convinced he was going to find a dinosaur egg. And the last day of their vacation, he's digging in a little sand pit in the playground. So it's like not a place you would expect to find a dinosaur remains. And he dug down and he pulled up this thing and he says, I found a dinosaur egg. And his father's like, no, that's just a rock. And he kept insisting when they went home that he found a dinosaur egg. So his father took him to a museum to see a paleontologist to tell his son he did not find a dinosaur egg. And it turned out to be the largest collection of dinosaur eggs they've ever found, because they wanted to know where the heck he found them. And they went back and excavated and found like a huge cache of them. So you never know. I think we ignore children sometimes and what they say, to our detriment for sure. It's like, Robert says, what stone do you use, Ian?
Oh, I'm not so into the stones as
You've been
Siofra
using a
said.
rhodonite and you've got an amethyst. And
I've got an amethyst, yeah, which I use for some things, and that's about the only I really use. I've got a couple of amethysts.
yeah, and the rhodonite was the pink and black stone.
Right.
That you wanted for a specific purpose. Shay says, what a cool story about the boy and the dinosaur egg. I know, and it was on the news several years ago. Our ears just went, really? This is so cool. Yep, he was totally confident. He knew what he had.
That was pretty awesome.
It was way awesome. I think he was 5 or 6 years old,
Like that.
something like that. Been a while. It's nice when you hear stories like that and you're going like, yeah. Carla says, I remember that story. Pixie says, oh, rhodonite. What do you use it for? Do you have a specific purpose for it?
The rhodonite, well, it's not going to mean anything to anybody, but the rhodonite is used because it's pink and black, and that happens to be the 2 colors associated with two Kabbalistic letters used to form a shield of invisibility. So I more or less use it that way, but it's not so much due to the natural properties of the stones, but just due to the colors that are appropriate for what I wanted to use it for. So, yeah. Then I've got a couple of amethysts. I've got one little one that I like to travel through astrally. It's loaded up with Akaja, so I shrink my mental body down. I said astral, but I meant mental body travel, so I shrink down to the size of the amethyst and then step into it.
Sounds like fun.
To go places.
So Nozari says, has anyone seen the little hidden people? They're only 2 centimeters tall, and anyone can see them if they eat a specific undercooked mushroom, which does not have any hallucinogenic substances in it. I've heard about this, but no, I have not. It looks like we're coming up on our time. It's almost an hour and 30 minutes. Wow, time goes by fast when you're having fun, yes?
Yep.
All right, so, yes, I have heard about that, though. Carla says, I read about that. Yes, too. I guess we have to say bye. We're now raining really hard, apparently. Starting to pour buckets. But boy, as usual, it's been lots of fun catching up with everybody and having chats. Pixie says, thank you both. Thank you, Pixie. We're really happy that you're participating. Melissa says, what an interesting couple, you two. Have a peaceful week, Siofra, Ian, and everyone. Thank you. Jay says, thank you. Thank you, Shay. Teresa says, have a lovely week. Thank you, Teresa. Lazari says, it's past midnight here. Thank you. Ian says, goodbye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Blessed be all. And Carla says, what an awesome live. Much love. Siofra and Ian, love all. Thank you, guys. Flexible says, good live. Thank you. All right. We so enjoy communicating with you all. It's great. Yeah. Sun says, great listening. Much love. Robert says, bye all. Take care. And Beth says, not too soon. Seems like minutes. Love all of you. Dearly blessed be. All right.